and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our Game Week 30 tier list video where we're going to be ranking some of the most popular transfers in the world of FPL to see just how good they are. Guys, if you enjoyed this one, make sure you drop a like. Let's shoot for 1,000 likes on this video and subscribe if you're new around here, of course. Let's get started. So as always, we've got the 30 most popular transfers in at time of recording for Game Week 30 and we're going to categorize them depending on how good we feel they are as a transfer. And as always, guys, this video is going to be very much team dependent because depending on whether you are planning free hit on Game Week 34 or not, it's going to make a big difference to your sort of transfer plan. So I might include a few caveats on a few players here and there. So just be aware of that. There is no right or wrong answers in the world of FPL, as we know by now. But we are going to try and generalize anyway, and we're going to start off with Mr. Ollie Watkins, who I'm going to start off with him. I think we need to put him, I don't know, I think we need to put him somewhere in the middle because he is one of those players who I don't mind this fixture against Wolves this game week, but I do get the feeling that if you don't own Ollie Watkins already, he's probably not the kind of player you'd be looking to bring in. And the Wolves fixture is fine, don't get me wrong, but after that, we have a lot of double game weeks for various teams, whether that's in game week 34, 35, 36, or 37. Ollie Watkins is not going to be involved in any of those double game weeks. And when we look around the forwards at the moment, there might be some slightly better options to go for where you can maximize the amount of fixtures you get, as well as getting a pretty decent forward under your books as well. So we're going to put him in optional for now. I think that's about where I would like to put him. Next up, Semenyo, the 4.5 million legend. And if you're not planning a free hit in Game Week 34, you are going to start to look at bringing in some of those double Game Week players. And I know a lot of you guys are potentially looking at the likes of Salah, Son, Erling Haaland to bring in this game week. And if you're going to do that, you might need to free up some budget. And doing so might involve downgrading one of your forwards. And if you can downgrade one of your forwards to a 4.5 million guy, as well as getting a double game week in 34, hey, that's pretty good in the short term. So I do like Semenyo as a really nice, interesting pick that is going to be very, very team dependent, but at the same time, a solid pick who will be able to get you FPL returns with some decent fixtures in the short term, as well as that double in 34. Which brings us to our next player, and that is Alexis McAllister, who I think is a really interesting pick, who I am going to put in the optional category. Now, I know that maybe seems a little bit controversial from both sides. I know some people really like the look of McAllister at the moment. He is in a rich vein of form at the moment, getting goals and assists in all competitions. However, he has been on penalties with Salah being out of the team, so he has got a couple of penalties during that time. But I do think it's interesting to see that he is playing a slightly more advanced role. We're seeing Endo drop into that defensive midfield position, and McAllister has a bit more freedom in that midfield to try and get involved in the goal scoring. Now, when more Liverpool players come back from injury and stuff like that, maybe McAllister's role in the team changes a little bit. And to be fair, I do also think there is a lot of other midfielders that I would prefer to have than McAllister, but at the same time, he's not bad. He's not a bad pick for 5.8 million. You do get that double game week in 34 from the Liverpool man as well. So he's going to go in there. Onana is a really good pick for those of you thinking about free hitting in game week 34 because he doesn't double in 34. But he does have that fixture against Sheffield United there as well. So maybe even if you're not free hitting in 34, he's still going to be a reasonably useful player for that. But more importantly, double game week in 37. If you're looking for that long-term goalkeeper to tide you over till the end of the season, Onana could be the solution to that problem. Another player with a double game week in 34, Branthwaite. I think he's got to be a good transfer at least at that 4.2 million price tag. And if we're looking at value for money picks, he is definitely one of those guys. So we can throw him straight in there. And Everton, not too bad defensively, kind of a mid-table defense. They will keep some clean sheets in some of their slightly easier fixtures as well. And he's a very good bargain player, maybe to have mostly on your bench, but will be able to come in and deputise in those difficult game weeks. For example, this week, if you've got Arsenal defenders, Man City defenders, those two teams playing each other, you might need that backup player, backup defender for this game week. So yeah, again, if you're not free hitting in 34, then Branthwaite could be very, very useful indeed for you. A player who has multiple double game weeks. So we have Spurs and Chelsea with multiple double game weeks. And Udogie is obviously a Spurs defender. At 5 million, he's probably the cheapest Spurs defender worth going for at this exact moment. A little bit of attacking threat there. 2 double game weeks. One of them will take place in either game week 35 or 36. And they'll have another one in 37 as well. So double doubles, which is very, very nice, which we love from these Spurs and Chelsea players. But if you are free hitting in 34, I think that he is the kind of player you go for. If you are not free hitting in 34, I would probably hold off before going for a doggy, because at the end of the day, the Spurs defense is not that great. And even in some of those easier fixtures, we don't naturally expect clean sheets from Spurs. We've seen time and time and again, they do concede goals. So we're sort of looking at one clean sheet in the last something like 12 or maybe even more game weeks. They just do not keep clean sheets at all. So be aware of that one. A nice player to own if you are looking to free hit him out in game week 34. But if you're looking for that nice long-term for the rest of the season kind of defender to sit sometimes on your bench, sometimes playing in those double game weeks at 5 million, I think he's a very, very good value for money there. Fabian Schär is up next, another player with a 37 double game week, but he is maybe a little bit expensive at 5.4 million. And although the fixtures look decent, I'm still not fully convinced by the Newcastle defence. So I'm going to drop him into optional. I see the appeal, though he wouldn't be top of my priority list. And more importantly, guys, if you are looking for a Newcastle defender right now, take a look at Jamal Lascelles, 3.9 million. And with Botman ruled out for the rest of the season, we expect Lascelles to be playing every single game between now and the end of the season, probably as captain of Newcastle as well. So I think Lascelles is maybe the player to go for ahead of Schär, which maybe, I mean, if we're going to try and be a bit more harsh and not sit on the fence on these tier list videos, it may be just about drop Schär into that avoid section, because we do have Lascelles there, but it has to be acknowledged Schär does have some attacking threat. I do think Lascelles has a bit of that attacking threat as well, though. Just want to put that one out there. We're going to put Romero in a void. Similar reasons to a doggy. I think a doggy is just a better pick to Romero. So in a straight decision, which of the two players you're going to go for, I think you probably do go for a doggy over Romero. So therefore, I'm going to put him in the avoid section. Next up, Leno. Decent fixture over the next couple of game weeks, but no doubles. No double. So I think Leno is a very nice pick for the super short term. But with goalkeepers, I think we need to be looking a little bit more long term. And I think I would try, if I was getting a goalkeeper in, I'd want them to be a goalkeeper with at least one double game week between now and the end of the season. Particularly if we're just looking at these kind of mid-priced kind of goalkeepers. I think there is probably better goalkeepers you can go for, goalkeepers from better teams at a similar value who also have those double game weeks and have those decent fixtures in the much longer term as well. So therefore, Leno is going to go in the avoid section for me personally. I think there's better options out there right now. Now, this one is going to be controversial, I know, because I know a lot of people have very strong feelings towards this player one way or another. But ultimately, the goal of FPL is to get FPL points, and Nicholas Jackson has been delivering recently, so I think he goes in the good transfer category. 2 double game weeks between now and the end of the season. If you're free hitting in 34 anyway, you don't need to focus too much on those double game week kind of forwards for that game week in particular. And having those 2 doubles, having a striker who plays multiple game weeks, has decent fixtures in the short term as well. Really nice fixtures coming up for Chelsea. I think he's actually a very, very strong player to go for at this moment, though I know people would naturally just have a little bit of distrust for Jackson. I still think he is in the mix as one of the better picks right now. Højlund probably has a little bit more faith, a little bit more optimism in him since his return from injury, which we're going to see now after this international break. So people will be more optimistic about him. Similar situation to Nicholas Jackson, has that game week 37 double, but doesn't have any more doubles. So 1 double game week for Højlund, 2 for Jackson. Jackson also has the better fixtures. So despite Højlund being maybe a slightly more fashionable FPL pick, I suppose, I think I still would edge towards Jackson at the moment. But of course, that is going to be a preference thing, of course. We're going to stick another avoid here, and it's going to be Bradley. Yeah, unfortunately, yes, he probably will play this game week, but we're looking at Trent Alexander-Arnold potentially being back in game week 31-32. That's where we're looking at right now for a Trent return. And as soon as that happens, Bradley is just not going to be a starting player for Liverpool. And I know a lot of people are targeting Liverpool players for their double in 34. By the time we get to game week 34, it's probably going to be a time where Bradley is not seeing too many minutes, and Trent will be very much back at the front of that Liverpool right back pecking order once again. So Bradley, so super short term, doesn't really benefit you for the double game week in 34. Yes, he's nice and cheap, but I just don't think he is a player I'd like to go for right now. Garnacho at 4.9 million provides a lot of value for money, so we do have to put him in the good transfer category. Another player, kind of like Semenyo, we know we're going to get a double game week from Garnacho. That's going to be in game week 37, and he is a nice, cheap player. If you need to make a downgrade in order to make an upgrade elsewhere, Garnacho could be a very, very beneficial player in order to do that. Which brings us to Saka. Now, initially I thought I would possibly put Saka in the avoid section, but a player like Saka, is he ever truly an avoid? Probably not. Now, he is currently flagged in FPL with that yellow Dorito of death. Though I should say, at the moment, it looks optimistic that he will be starting against Manchester City. So the latest on Saka is that the reason he was sent home from the England camp was because he is nursing a long-term injury. We kind of know about this, and the England games would maybe overwork him, and they want to manage his load a little bit to help him recover a little bit during these times. So he is ready for this Manchester City game. Of course, after that, Arsenal have a double in 34. They have some okay fixtures, and they are just a very reliable team to depend on anyway. Saka is another penalty taker as well. So although I wouldn't necessarily be desperate to get in Saka ahead of this Manchester City game, he's definitely never going to be a bad transfer. He's one of those players who's always at least decent, but I don't think he is at the top of our priority list for this game week. I think after this week, we can get maybe a slightly more detail on his injury situation with press conferences. We can get that Man City game out of the way, and we can start prepping for game week 34. If you don't have Saka right now, I don't think you need to get him for this game week. He would be nice to have, of course. He's always nice to have, but maybe not. Next up, another forward, and it is going to be Isak. Isak is another player like Højlund who is going to be having a nice double game week in 37. So, game week 34, 3 hitters. Isak is definitely the kind of player you'd be looking at getting because he has nice fixtures now. He has double game weeks later on in this season. Fantastic. If you're on a wild card, again, Isak definitely a player that you'd be looking at going for. One word of caution about Isak, though, is his injury record. And if he does find himself injured between now and that famous big double game week in 37, then that's going to be no good for you. But I think he can reward you in the short term. A player on penalties, a very, very good striker whenever he is on a football pitch. It's just a case of whether he can keep himself fit. And fingers crossed he can, because I think he's a wonderful, wonderful football player. Next up, Aït-Nouri, and this is a difficult one. He plays against Aston Villa, which is obviously a tough fixture. And it's not an Arsenal, Liverpool, Man City kind of tough fixture exactly, and I think Aston Villa have kind of dwindled a little bit in form, but Aït-Nouri does have a very decent amount of attacking threat. After this game week, his fixtures are great, and we have a double in 34 for Wolverhampton Wanderers as well. So I think Aït-Nouri, not a must-buy for this game week necessarily, but longer term, I think he's a really nice pick. Really, really nice pick over the, kind of up until game week 34 where he has that double. After that, probably would be looking away from Aït-Nouri, but in the short term, I like it. Well, I say short term. Medium term, I like it. He is a very, very nice player to have. If you can stomach this Aston Villa game, that is, of course. Kelleher is a really tough one to place because ultimately we don't know when Alisson is going to be back. And I've tried to do my research today, guys, to try and get some information for you. And it's unclear. The Alisson return date is April, just generally April. April starts in game week 31, so that's not super helpful to us. So Kelleher could be only available as a starting Liverpool goalkeeper for game week 30 only. And we really, if we want to go for a goalkeeper, if you want to go for, like a Kelleher, we're looking really to try and get Kelleher, who plays a double in 34. And right now, I can't tell you if he will be the starting goalkeeper for Liverpool during that game week. So he's a risky pick. I think we put him somewhere around the optional area. If you want to take that risk on Alisson being out longer term, I say go for him. If you are a little bit worried, you want to play a little bit more conservatively, then Kelleher is definitely a risky pick if you are targeting game week 34 players. But hey, if you have Kelleher already, definitely a player to keep. Just monitor that Alisson situation. Pedro Porro, I'm going to put similar to Romero. I don't really see the value for money in Pedro Porro when compared to Udogie, and I can't really see a situation in which I would want 2 Spurs defenders because their defense just is not that good. But again, later on in the season, we do definitely like the look of the Spurs double-double. So there is some appeal in Pedro Porro, but I don't, again, with these videos, I don't like to sit on the fence. I like to try and categorize players as high or low as possible and kind of leave the middle areas as empty as possible. Often that is very, very difficult to do because there is no such thing as a bad FPL asset. Sometimes you just have to be in the right place at the right time. I think in general, though, Udogie is the player for me, personally. If I'm totally honest, I can't see Spurs keeping that many clean sheets over the next few game weeks anyway. You'd really be buying these players for the much, much, much longer term for those doubles later on in the season. Solanke, double in 34. That's good. It's soon. It's nice. It's decent. Like when we look at some of these other forwards, they don't have a double in 34. So if you are not free hitting in Game Week 34 and you need a forward who is going to double and has nice fixtures in the short term, Solanke's potentially your guy, and I think Solanke is definitely the kind of player who, if you're not free hitting, if you are not free hitting in 34, then Solanke is very nice to own up until Game Week 34, and then at that point, you maybe think about switching to the likes of Jackson, Isak, Højlund, those kind of guys there. He probably wouldn't be my #1 favourite forward to buy this game week necessarily, but he's definitely up there. Next up, Van Dijk. Yeah, much more solid, much more reliable. We know he's going to start every game. We know he's going to start for that double game week as long as he doesn't get any injuries or suspensions. And I think, therefore, we need to put him in the good transfer category. A little bit expensive at 6.5 million. But if we're looking for the double game week defenders for Game Week 34, Van Dijk is, you know, very, very close to the top of the pile. You'd probably only put Arsenal defenders above Van Dijk. And even Arsenal defenders, you might not want to own them this game week because of their fixture against Manchester City. Liverpool play against Brighton this week. So if you are looking to bring in Liverpool and Arsenal defenders, maybe this week you go for your Liverpool. Next week you start to bring in those Arsenal players after that Man City game. And speaking of Arsenal players you might want to bring in after the Man City game, we've got Ben White, who I think is a fantastic FPL asset. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It's just this Man City game. I don't know if I'd want to bring him in right at this moment. I'm going to put him in the optional category because I think the great thing about Arsenal is they can keep a clean sheet in any given game week, even against the toughest teams, but it's far from a guarantee and there might be better opportunities elsewhere. I think Ben White is one of those players who you can wait one more week before going for him, but after this game week, he's going to be, you know, a really, really nice player. You know, if you've got Gabriel already, you're looking to add that second Arsenal defender into your team maybe, then I would say White is probably above Saliba in the pecking order of best FPL Arsenal defenders to buy at this moment. So really, really do like Ben White as a pick. And we're going to put him in optional, no higher, just because of that Manchester City fixture in the immediate term. Next up, Darwin. Super hard to place. I think he goes into, if you are not free hitting in 34, I think he's a great transfer if fit. That's the big question, isn't it? Because obviously he was withdrawn from that Uruguay squad. I don't think the injury is too serious. Jurgen Klopp has been fairly optimistic about Darwin's inclusion in the next game week squad. So I think if he is available, he is up there. He really is up there. Possibly one of the first forwards you look at buying for this game week. But sadly, we don't have that information guaranteed. So at this moment, I think we drop him down into the optional, very much team news dependent, availability dependent. That is the honest situation we find ourselves in there. Next up, Phil Foden. Again, another player like Saka. Always going to be a great pick no matter what the game week. This is a really tough game for any attacker though. So we're going to drop him in the middle for optional. Another player who I would try and wait one more game week before bringing him in. If you have other areas of your team that you might think about improving, I think Foden is not a must buy at this moment. Next up, Robinson of Fulham. Very, very popular pick at the moment. Nice short-term pick, but no double game weeks for the rest of the season. And after the next two, I think we might see a few more goals go in the against the Fulham back line. I think he is optional. He's nice short-term, but long-term optional. I mean, we'll just look at this Sheffield United game, don't we, really? But yeah, I think he's optional for this game week. But I just can't see him as a long-term pick. And I think with those cheap defenders, you don't really want to be spending too many transfers on constantly moving around those cheaper defenders. So I don't know. We're going to put him there for now. Thankfully, there is one more defender who we are going to play shortly, who I think is maybe slightly higher in the pecking order for those defenders you want to be going for. Next up, though, we need to talk about Erling Haaland, which is a really difficult one. Do we just put him same situation as some of these other guys, like Saka, Foden? You know, you don't have to buy him this week, but they're always a good pick. We know Erling Haaland is always a good pick. Or, because he is Haaland, because he is him in the Premier League, that goal-scoring machine, he's going to score against anyone. Do we actually drop him slightly higher if you don't have him already? I think that is potentially the case. So I am going to put Haaland in the good transfer. He is not an absolute must-buy for this game week necessarily. I'm going to drop him around these other forwards here. This kind of similar area. But yeah, if you don't have him, you can wait one more week. You really, really can wait one more week if you need to. There will be higher priority transfers, which we need to talk about. Now, starting off, with Malo Gusto, who I'm going to put in the great transfer category immediately. I think if I'm going for a defender and I'm free hitting in 34, you buy Gusto. Straight up. Super cheap at 4.2 million. Amazing form. You know, his numbers are fantastic. He is getting so many opportunities to get assists, so many key passes, getting in those real dangerous areas for this Chelsea team. And even when Reece James comes back into this Chelsea team, I can see Gusto continuing to play as long as he continues this great form. 2 double game weeks later on in the season, I think he's just, you know, one of the top players to buy for those of you who are free hitting in 34. He really is a really nice pick to go for. If you are not free hitting in 34, I still think he could be useful with some really nice fixtures coming up for Chelsea. Maybe you can wait a little bit longer potentially, but I think it just in general for anyone, I don't think he is a bad transfer for anyone. And I think it's quite unique in some of these players. Next up, Heung-min Son. A great transfer for those free hitting in 34. Because remember, guys, Spurs do not have a fixture in Game Week 34. So this is another real key bit of information. Spurs blank in 34. So they do have the 2 doubles after that. If you are free hitting in 34, you buy Son. You buy Son. Luton Town up next, a potential captaincy option for this game week as well. Just a really nice pick in general, who's been very reliable. I think he will go back to the wing with Richarlison back in the starting 11 for Spurs. And another kind of note on Richarlison, he is not one of the most popular players this game week. But if I'm free hitting this game week, well, if I'm free hitting in 34 and I already have Son and I'm looking for a new midfielder this game week, I think Richarlison is genuinely like really up there as the kind of guy I would like to go for. Richarlison, Son, Richarlison, and 2 other midfielders who we need to talk about in this video would be my kind of top 4 midfielders to go for if I'm free hitting in 34. Now, I'm not free hitting in 34, so I'm probably going to have to go without Son personally and Richarlison. But yeah, there's certainly some other options out there. So let's go to Muniz next. It was the 3rd most popular transfer at time of recording. I'm going to put him in a similar area to Semenyo. Muniz is in better form than Semenyo, has probably better fixtures over the next 4 than Semenyo, but Muniz, unfortunately for him, does not have a double game week in 34 or for the rest of the season. So a nice short-term pick, a nice bench pick. Team dependent, could be very useful to you. I think he can score enough points in the next few game weeks, though, that he can potentially make up for having to use another transfer on him later on in the season. So yeah, it's got to be up there as a good transfer for this game week, which brings us to our final 2 players. The first one, I am going to... You know what? Actually, we'll put them both in at the same time because as far as I'm concerned, these 2 are must-buys. And they are Salah and Palmer. Now, they're not both must-buys no matter who you are. They're both must-buys depending on your situation. So, for Salah, he is a must-buy if you are not free hitting in 34 and you need to start building up, getting those double game week players for game week 34, prepare for that game week, then Salah is the player you need to get. He is going to be your game week 34 captain, almost no doubt about that. He plays Brighton this game week, which is an okay fixture, but again, another solid captaincy option. I think a lot of people will be looking to captain Salah this game week, and then after this game week, again, more great fixtures. So captain option this game week, fantastic fixtures all the way up to a double game week in 34. If you are not free hitting in 34, must buy. Even if you are free hitting in 34, I still think you probably bring him in, which again is why he is so important. Same situation for Palmer. If you are free hitting in 34, he's a must buy, absolute must buy. Another captain option for game week 30 and a player who is going to be very useful in these fantastic fixtures, as well as 2 double game weeks later on in the season nailed on penalties. You know, same situation as Salah there. Maybe Salah is a bit more of a FPL GOAT, of course, but Palmer is certainly making his name this season as well. So Palmer, he is going to go there, and again, same situation as Salah, but in reverse. Even if you are not free hitting in Game Week 34, Cole Palmer is still going to be an extraordinary player to own over the next 4 game weeks prior to that double game week. So he's still probably worth going for. Maybe bench him in Game Week 34 if you've got loads of other doublers, for example. Though, to be fair, Palmer, you know, really rate him as a pick. I would say Salah and Palmer are must-buys depending on whether you free hit in Game Week 34 or not. If you are free hitting, buy buy Palmer immediately. If you are not free hitting, buy Salah immediately. And I think it is as simple as that. You may need to make a double transfer this game week in order to facilitate the likes of Salah. If so, fine. Plenty of cheap options on today's tier list video. We've made sure we've adjusted for price and value for money on today's tier list video, so you can identify that cheap guy that can help release the funds to purchase a player like Salah. But there we go, guys. That is the completed tier list for today. I'm pretty happy with it. I'm happy with where everyone's placed. I've tried not to put too many players in the middle, although that's how it always goes. But certainly we've got a nice key players at the top that you definitely need to be having a very, very strong look at this game week. Let me know what you think about this tier list. Is everyone placed correctly, or do you think you would move anyone around? Are there any other players who I haven't mentioned in this video? Ask me about them. Leave a comment and I'll tell you where I would place them in this tier list as well and rate them as a potential transfer in for Game Week 30. Make sure you drop a like before you disappear. Like I say, shooting for 1,000 likes. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. We've already released 2 Game Week 30 videos over the last couple of days as well, so make sure you go check them out as well. Looking in particular at strategizing for the rest of the season with the new fixtures and double game weeks now and now. So guys, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.